Welcome back to Mr. Speaker, sir. Right here on MCTV Multicultural Television, bringing you closer to home. Now, this morning, while there are several political issues, we are focusing on some very important social ones, especially the ones which would have made their way to our national attention. In the past few days, we would have had the drowning of two children. Number one, a toddler, 3 years old. Number two, a young boy, 7 years old, in the backyards of their respective families. We would have also had a very recent murder-suicide situation, and this morning the country would have awoken to the news, would have gotten up to the news, to the death of a 16-year-old girl, young Aliyah Alexander of Claxton Bay, who would have fallen down a flight of stairs, allegedly while getting licks or being punished, so to speak. This morning we are joined by one of our very own members of the MCTV family, clinical psychiatrist Dr. Shivan Mahabir, who is also the host of A Present Mind right here on MCTV. Good morning to you, Dr. Mahabir, and welcome to Mr. Speaker, sir.
Hi, good morning, Kieron. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for agreeing to join us this morning. There are several issues which I've just outlined with respect to the social surface of the country. The deaths of these children making making themselves substantial issues, the domestic violence situation, the murder-suicide, and of course this death of this young lady. Let's take the death of this young lady first and ask you for your views on this matter. The parent, according to allegations, is beating the child. The child falls down a flight of stairs and dies. What are some of your initial thoughts to these reports emerging?
For me personally, what came to mind is that we need to rethink our method of disciplining our children. In a lot of the world, they are moving away from corporal punishment. And here in Trinidad, we still largely stick to the old spare the rod and spoil the child school of thought. But imagine the child does something to make you angry, and you are going to punish the child in that state. Are you in a state where you can control yourself to punish this child appropriately? And even if you punish in a non-physical way and you repent afterwards, you can make adjustments, but after you have delivered the corporal punishment to the child, there's no taking it back. So I think the larger issue here is that we need to look at how we discipline children, and we need to train parents how to effectively deal with children who may be misbehaving or behaving in a way that is not appropriate, rather than looking to these long-time ways of doing things.
How do you respond, Dr. Mahabir, to the view that, listen, I used to get licks as a child, my father used to get licks as a child, I turned out pretty okay, so my child can handle a couple bed lashes or what have you. How do you respond to this view that corporal punishment, because it is generationally normalized, should continue to be generationally normalized?
I would say that a lot of people have suppressed the feelings that they had as children going through this sort of thing. I think that we tend to look backwards with rose-tinted glasses, as we say. We romanticize things and we look at things through the most positive light. And to a large extent, that is a protective feature of our mind. Because if we focus only on the tragedies that we went through, it would leave us permanently scarred. But I see a lot of people in my practice, and when I speak to them and we delve into it, these things do leave scars. There are long-lasting effects. They may not be spoken about, they may not like to acknowledge it, but I believe that they do leave psychological scars.
Now, with respect to the family that is there, how should the society, because the family is part of a wider family network, the allegation is that the relative would have beaten the child. The relative is part of a family. The family is part of an extended family. They're also part of a community. How should the community and the society be treating the family, given the reports which have come out, a very controversial report indeed, that the actions of this family member would have led to the death of this young lady?
So, but this is the first thing, is that no one is sure what really happened.
Right.
And the community, they will have their own opinion of this person from before. Do they think that he's an aggressive person? Is he just a strict disciplinarian? Is he somebody who, is a cool fella normally? So they will, the community around this person will take these events and they will apply it to this person, and they will look at what they think this person is, and that is how they will view the event. So if I draw a different example to one of the other cases of the accidental drowning, the family and the community around them may react in a different way. The circumstances are different. The people involved, the personalities are different. So in that situation, the way the community views it is going to be very different. But it all comes back to what do they already think of this person, and that is how they will decide whether this was an accident or whether this was something else.
So, having regard for what the community would have felt about the person, you did make the point that an investigation is ongoing, and perhaps this not to be or to be something that people pronounce upon, given that we do not know the facts. Let's take us to the second incident which would have taken place, Dr. Mahabir, or I should say the second and the third incidents on our agenda this morning, which are both correlated, the drowning of two young children. Now, the young children would have drowned and would have left with them families who are being observed by the community. People are saying things about them. People are wondering whether it is negligence, whether it was an honest mistake. What are some of your thoughts on incidents of this particular nature and the considerations which ought to be made?
Anyone who has looked after children knows that it's a very difficult task. You have to be switched on basically 100% of the time, because from the time that you're not looking, they will be off interfering with something, right? So that's one thing. The next question will be, were the appropriate safety measures taken to secure the pool if the children were not supposed to be there? And if the children were supposed to be in the pool, because I am not aware of the details, if they were supposed to be there, who was watching them and what was going on? Obviously, in terms of how the family will deal with this situation, it is a very tragic loss, and I'm sure this family will need some time to grieve, to go through the appropriate emotion. We have a tendency as onlookers, as third parties, to pass judgment without knowing all the facts. And we also have a tendency to victim shame. So some persons will, be very moved by the tragedy, and they will want to express that negative emotion in some way. And when they do that, it may be in a very negative way, so it sounds like, oh, they careless, oh, they do this or they do that. But none of us who were not there is really aware of what happened. So we can't rush to pass judgment. We need to be aware of our own feelings and how we are projecting that onto the situation.
I appreciate that point very much, Dr. Mahabir, because many times families who would have lost a child under these circumstances need to deal with the grief of losing a young child, but also need to deal with the weight of judgment that comes from community members, other relatives, and other family members indeed.